All right, so we are going to go ahead and start. So I just want to say, hi, my name is Essick. I am a transmasculine trans guy. I am currently I'm going to say about 8 years on testosterone, and my pronouns are he, they. And take it away, Rory.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rory. I use they, them pronouns. I am a transmasculine, non-binary individual, and did you say how long you've been out? I forgot what you said. I'm sorry, I was fixing settings.
No, that's quite all right. So, I've personally been medically transitioning for only about 8 years, but I have been out and living as my true self for the last, I'm going to say, 10 years or so.
I've been socially transitioning amongst friends for, oh man, my work anniversary is next week. So like 13 years now, something about that. Like when I was getting out of high school. And then I've been transitioning socially at work for the past 6 or 7 in my IRL workplace.
Awesome. And finally, Lucien, tell us about yourself.
I'm Lucien. I'm 19 years old, and I have been transitioning for about 3 years. I've been on testosterone for about 6 months now, and that's mostly it for me. It's not been that long, but I'm fully out.
Oh, I forgot to say, I'm 29.
Yes. Alrighty. So the first general question is, so what does gender euphoria mean to you specifically, like as a transmasc person? So, there's obviously medical, social, and, legal transition. So what does that gender euphoria mean for you? I would say for me, gender euphoria, like when I socially came out 10 years ago, it was people using my name, Essick, that I changed it to, and using he, they pronouns. I first came out as genderqueer, and then I took on a more binary masculine identity another year or two later, because I realized, like, hey, maybe I am binary. And another thing that made me very euphoric was getting a shorter haircut. I didn't have long hair anymore. Dressing up in more dapper masculine styles is something that helped me, achieve euphoria. So, Rory,
Not for me,
how
right?
would you? Yeah, Lucien.
Okay.
Sorry. No, yeah, Lucien.
Yeah, just doing that
Go
on
ahead.
zero or something, but that's okay. For me, gender euphoria, I like when people say my name, but for me, it was always mostly about how people refer to me. I have something just not about being wrong. The old stuff is not wrong, but just the new stuff, which is being called a man and that kind of stuff. For me, it's just more right. Just the thing that is more comfortable. That's what euphoria is for me. And when I started going by my new name, I also felt a little bit like things were not wrong anymore, But that's like the biggest thing for me. Medical transition was not a big thing at all. And for you, Rory?
I just hit my unmute button on accident. For me, gender euphoria is sort of, it's a bit more complicated because of being non-binary. Like, I definitely prefer masculine terms to feminine terms, so whenever I hear someone say, oh, sir, or something like that, that feels really nice. But honestly, I think the biggest thing is hearing the correct pronouns used. I haven't changed my name at work. The name that I use at work is the same as my birth name. mainly to still have a bit of a disconnect between my online self and my flesh self, and also because that would be such a pain to do, because changing your name is harder than you think depending on the state. But so people using like the right pronouns or something like that just really means a lot. But also, like, another type of euphoria is just like wearing something and liking how I look in it. Because like I used to hate wearing anything feminine because I didn't want to be perceived as a woman or as a girl. But I realized that part of it for me is I like wearing feminine associated things, but in a masculine way. So being able to get to that point, because at the beginning you like shun everything that's of the previous quote unquote gender. So being able to bring that back and be like, no, I like wearing a dress, but I don't wear a dress in a girl way. I wear a dress in a guy way. Feels nice.
Oh, that's so true. That's actually an experience that I think a lot of transmasculine get with. I have a thing where I still like to paint my nails, even like after a transition, and I used to see that as a feminine thing. But then you realize there's things that you like that are inherently feminine or masculine. They're just things you like, right?
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
That goes well for the next question we're gonna do, right, Essick? Which was, how did the media portrayal of trans people affect our discovery of ourselves? Essick, do you wanna start?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say I was really reluctant to come out. God, I'm gonna age myself, but I don't care. I was around the time where that movie Boys Don't Cry came out, and it features Hilary Swank, and she plays a trans man, Brendan Tina. It's a sad movie. Unfortunately, a lot of trans guys in my age bracket, you could say, kind of, I don't want to say like identify, but they identify with like Brendan's story a lot, because I mean that was like a really big, powerful film, like back when it was released in like the very early 90s. But it affected me because I was like, oh, here's this person that was able to live their life, but it was a very, very sad movie and really traumatizing. So I was like, this is great. But then slowly, as the year started to go forward, I started to realize, like, hey, there may not be quote unquote mainstream, masculine voices, but that doesn't mean that I can't stop and be one myself. So, did you want to go ahead and
how people say that transmass media affected them sometimes is a little bit far for me, because particularly in my journey, I am from Brazil, right? And when I was smaller and did not speak English, I did not actually have any transmass portrayal. It was all trans femme portrayal, because here you hear a lot about trans femmes, and especially about third gender cultural identity that we have here, which is travesti, which is also a trans femme term, but never about transmasc. So for me, it was like literally nothing, right? Always focused on trans femmes. Then I come to this English world, and what I see is some transmasc representation at least, but sometimes it's like A6, I just said, and other times it's just pre-transition guys. And I thought really transmasc people were just that, like girls that had mastectomy, girls that were at least very skinny pro-transition people. And when I got to see actual transmasc people that were around me, I then just clicked for me, oh, media is not actually reality. But that was it for me. What about you, Rory?
So for me, when I was starting to figure out my gender and stuff, I didn't actually have any actual transmasc media that I knew of. However, for me, it was more sort of, how do I phrase? Like fandom portrayal of characters that I identified with.
definitely.
The biggest one, honestly, which is something I only realized sort of recently, was from Vocaloid. if any of you have heard of Len Kagami,
Oh no, I know exactly what you're saying.
the other yellow one who's with the other yellow one who are both not in Mesmerizer. A lot of media portrayal of him or like fan portrayal, but also kind of media portrayal because fans were making the media, because that's how it works, was about Len hating feminine things and always being forced into wearing feminine things and always being really uncomfortable with it and wanting to wear the masculine things and do the masculine things, but always sort of like he was like the butt of the joke. And it was like, oh, but he's doing all this feminine stuff. And I realized I kind of identified with that, of like, I'm doing all the feminine things, but I don't really want to. And then, of course, Brain was like, man, I sure hope this isn't a critically important thing for my identity that I'm finding out freshman year of high school that I won't discover what it actually means for 4 more years. The other kind of representation that again was fandom related was Makoto from Idolmaster, because Makoto from Idolmaster, it's a rhythm game, dresses very masculinely, has short-cut hair, sings in a lower register, and is treated as a tomboy. But the more that I like heard her songs and looked at her music, I was like, I want to be like her. I want to be like her. And I didn't realize it's because I wanted to be the more masculine. Not that I wanted to be a masculine girl, but that I wanted to have that sort of am I a girl, am I a guy that she had going for her.
Oh my god, I feel like exactly the same. Just I already answered, but just adding a little bit. I initially came out as a bigender person, not as a binary transmasc. And when I was like that, I was always saying, yeah, I love characters in media that are just one or the other, and you don't know, because the idea was just like, well, it's like so good, right? You have this transmasc representation, which does not represent me, but then those characters that were between one and another, and I felt like that represented me more than the transmasc representation that I was seeing on the English world when I came in.
Awesome. So I know, like, we were talking about, characters and media portrayal and identity, but this other question sort of goes into it a little bit. So, reflecting on your transition, so how has it affected you? Like, what was a difficult or unexpected situation? Oh wait, yeah. What was how has transitioning affected you? I would say on my end, transitioning has helped me in a very positive way. I was very scared. I was very nervous because I was afraid of, being disowned and not being able to have, I guess you could say, a productive life. But, once I went into a bigger university at a college where I did my undergrad, I was exposed to more trans people, specifically more like trans adults, and that's where I saw for the first time, I was like, oh, I can, do the thing that I want to do, and, it's okay. Like, even, worst case scenario, if I don't get support that I need from my family or my friends, I have like my little LGBT family that I could rely on and my community to do that. So that's like one aspect that's sort of, affected. It's affected me emotionally, but in a good way. Lucien, would you like to comment?
Well, I'm kind of similar to you in a sense. I had came out to my family when I actually don't remember now, but I had coming out to them, but they forced me back into the closet, right? So when I go to university, I had already know what I was for a long time, but I was in this mindset that there's literally no place on earth that likes me. I would just stay here, just stay down in my closet. Oh my god! And then I go to uni, and it's exactly like Essick said. My university was very had a lot of programs, even for trans people. They had a thing where you could be called by your social name into everything. And I realized that actually my country had a law in which they were obligated to respect me and my social name. So I went like, wait, why don't I just transition? Why don't I just transition? And I did, even without my family wanting that. I mean, not everyone can do that actually, but I did. And it made me like a happier person. I had severe depression and that kind of stuff. And of course, not everything was solved by the transition, but I would say that there was a good part of the things that I always felt bad about. They did get better just because of transition. And well, even so, even nowadays, when I have to like fake being a certain gender, even just to travel, because my identity is not fully rectified yet, which is like changing it, I get sad, and I can see that because I just feel I'm not comfortable with that. So transitioning that way is like just really better in my life in every single possible way. Rory?
So, sort of to start off in like the telling my family type of thing, I actually came out to them as gay before I came out as trans. It was actually a really funny situation of like a friend of mine was like jokingly like, oh, you got to tell them because if you don't, because they kept trying to say that we were like cute together or something, which, but he was like, yeah, you got to tell them or I'm going to tell your parents and I'm going to be like, your kid and I have a lot in common. We both like women. So I kind of had to tell before that came up in conversation. But the trans stuff was a lot harder for me. And I feel like sometimes they would have a little bit easier time if it was binary, but it's fine. As for transition itself, it's affected a lot of what I do. Like, well, I work here for one. I'm a member of the Trans Academy. I'm a member of the volunteer team. It brought me here. And it also has affected me in my IRL professional life and my virtual professional life. In real life, I work at a library, which is a typically female profession. And online, I am a VTuber, a typically female profession. And while I came out at work publicly after like working there, the streaming has been the whole time. And in fact, I went to VTubing because of being able to have a model that looked like me while I could do my online stuff. So it's affected a lot of my professional life and, of course, my personal life as well. It's affected it in good ways. It's also made things a little bit more complicated in some of the professional ways.
Well, that goes good also with our next question, right? Which was, what is a difficult or unexpected situation that you find in regards to transitioning? I'm sorry, Essick, I'm just reading the question.
No, it's all right. It's all right, Lucien. So actually, no, you could go ahead and we could go a little bit out of it. So, Lucien, so what was like a difficult or unexpected situation that you had to face with transitioning? And I feel like this is important to, yeah, go ahead.
Well, right now, I'm thinking about Rory's answer because that actually resonated a lot with me, so I was still thinking about that while I was talking. But I think finding that some people, they like the idea of you and not who you actually are, in the sense that they are your friend or like your family member, and they will say they will support you and that kind of stuff. But then they go and they do things that clearly show that after they're doing your name and the pronouns, they go and they do things that are like, oh, but you're actually this, right? You're actually a girl and that kind of stuff. And that was a little bit hard for me because there's people that genuinely like you, but they will act like that. And I had to like pick and choose who I was wanting to stay with and who I didn't want to. And I originally thought that would be easy, right? But that's actually the hardest part, at least on my end. there's just something about like wanting to conform to what people are saying. You know, I'm just thinking about that. They keep saying, they say like, well, you're doing that and you are becoming a man, but you're not leaving us, right? Us? Who? Women. What do you mean I'm not leaving you as women? Well, I mean, you are still a woman too, right? Yeah, that's
that was yeah. I was gonna say, so for me, what was sort of like difficult or unexpected is like I wasn't prepared how hostile, like even how some I would say like even how other men would see me, right? So like it was a shock because I guess like the second they realize, like some people realize that you're trans, it does something to their brain. It's, you know, it's like you crushed their worldview and they kind of take it out of you. They take it out on you in a way, right? So that was something.
When they say that you cannot be trans, right? Because you're so melee, though you cannot be trans, you can be trans.
Right. And, you know, it's kind of unfortunate, like they just like take it out on you. And Rory?
So I have two things. The first one kind of goes off of what Lucien said, and that's of family saying that they support you while behaving differently. A member of my family will say things like, "Oh, I'll always support you. Oh, I love you so much," and then says things like, "Well, this person's really a woman. Well, this person's really this," and like parroting certain
Unsavory
talking
things.
points that are not legitimate and sort of stuff like that. And I just have to deal with it because that is a family member that I care about. And it's a struggle. The other situation was, let me put into context. I first started realizing that I was queer and stuff like that when I was a teenager on Tumblr. So for anyone who knows Tumblr back over a decade ago, that will have just caused psychic damage. However, there was a lot, there still is, but there was a lot of queer and trans infighting at the time, and there was a lot of difficulty being a transmasc person in these spaces because trans femmes in those spaces would get aggressive because they viewed it as this is their space. And I get that having spaces for an identity is fine. But if we're just on trans internet, trans Tumblr, like, you know what I mean? And so there would just be like aggression and like shoving down of transmascs, which is what we got as AFABs anyway, which was getting told, be quiet, behave, shut up, sit down. And
oh my god, I so get that.
It's a lot better now if you go to the right spaces, but it was something that was incredibly upsetting because even trans femmes were treating me like woman light. They were doing the same behaviors, but
woman pleasure
in a defensive way.
Yeah.
And that was really difficult for me, and is one of the reasons that I'm very happy at the Academy, is because when I came into it, that's what I was expecting. Not because of anything the Academy did, but because my online experience had taught me that that's what I'm gonna get, you know? And then like people were chill and open and willing to listen, and I'm like, wait, the internet can do that? What do you mean? So those were some definitely difficult situations.
Yeah, like, what do you mean people actually can be respectful? Oh my god. people can actually be
On
respectful.
the
But yeah,
internet? That's allowed?
the internet.
Unheard of.
Well,
I'm used to
I
loud chat.
also
I'm used to
found
loud
that
general chat. What do you mean people can be nice?
actually that thing also happens in my university. So with the trans femmes and transmasc, sometimes I'm just here and I'm on the group chat of like the LGBT collective there, and sometimes people just start going, "I hate men. I hate all men." I'm just like, "I'm a man. I'm so sorry." And then you go talk, and they say, "Transmascs are different. They're not like men. They're just like men, but like men plus, you know." And that sounds so weird.
They don't really realize that it's it's kind of a that it's a
Reductive.
problem. Yeah, it's reductive, and that what they mean is that they're frustrated with how masculinity is in society at the moment perpetuated, and like the patriarchy and all that, and they don't.
Of course.
It's a common thing is people will generalize and then be like, but not you though, for like any reason, even if you're not trans,
Not you.
and they think that
It absolves
that
them
it's
of
like
them.
elevating you,
Yeah.
but it's actually just like shoving you into the dirt. And it's like, why? Bro, I just said hi. Like, hello? And like, there's a lot of infighting in these different groups, which is unfortunate. And there has been for a long time. Not a super long time. I mean, I would argue that probably before the internet, communities were, especially queer communities, were a lot more ingrained with each other because they needed to be. And now that things are more spread out online, it's a little bit more difficult to actually have that camaraderie, which is one of the things that VR chat helps with, because it allows you to like sort of be face to face and bring that community experience to the virtual so that it rehumanizes the people that you're talking about, and all that. But it's the internet.
Of course. Of course.
I feel
Oh,
like that
yeah.
could be said. Like, I feel like if you ask like 1,000 questions, you could just say, "It's the internet," and just that would be the answer to all of it.
Yeah,
All
we
of the
need to bring
things.
the communities more together, like in the sense of not just stop this infighting, but like recognizing that everyone is different, right? So please don't go around saying, "No, you're men plus or woman plus" or that kind of stuff, because someone might not like it. So first, let's can I say? I would so appreciate
Right.
if you didn't, right?
And like for a lot of us, the online community was the first version of the queer community we experienced.
Exactly.
I know it
Oh,
was for
definitely.
me. Like I said, I was on Tumblr. I was on Tumblr at like 12. Don't be on Tumblr at 12.
I was on Tumblr at 12 too.
Don't be on Tumblr during your formative years. Worst mistake of my life. No, but you get what I mean. But like these online communities were what we had, and now they're starting to improve, which is good. But also, like, if you can get into a physical community in your area, do that. If you're safe to do so, if you're not impaired by a disability or
family
anything like
obligation.
that,
Yep.
or family, if it's safe for you, if it's safe in your area. I just hit my wall. I'm so sorry. That was so loud. Let me take a step. But it's very important, if you can, to have those in-person experiences as well, because we need to stick together. And it's a lot easier to not stick together if you don't have those connections. Like I said, this definitely helps. This works. This connects people in a almost physical way over online, but knowing about your local community as well is also incredibly important, especially with stuff going on right now.
Exactly. So this kind of like shifting gears a little bit. So one of the questions that I think is also really important is, how was your support system important to you to your transition? So, well, like I said, when I was in undergrad and university, it was actually my college's legal aid that came to my rescue and helped me get a free name change, which was very nice of them. Like, if you were a member of the university and you were a student, you could get a free legal name change that way, and that's what I did. And then when it finally came point for me for medical transitioning, I first went to this clinic in my actual city that just served queer people, and then hormone HRT therapy was a part of their whole, I guess you could say, like, their whole health regimen. Like, they also help with STDs and other stuff, just general health, but they also helped. But that was super important to me because I literally felt like if I didn't have those people in the town that I lived in, I don't think I would have had the courage to come out and be who I am today, really. Because when you come from a small conservative town and, you know, you live with more closed-minded type people, it's harder for you to express those feelings and not feel like you're being invalidated. So, Lucien?
Well, for how this helped me, like, around my life, I would say there's a similar part to the university. My university actually helped me find a therapist which was trans-friendly. Actually, it's really funny because after me, I recommended so many people from my university to her that she actually is, like, almost trans and specialized now, of, like, so many. Like, literally. But and there was especially a coordinator from my institute, and she would, like, literally, what's the name? You know when you get really mad when something really small happens? Yeah, she did that, but every single time someone did bad stuff with trans people, and it made me feel safe, at least, you know? For my friends, they helped me realize that I don't need to conform, you know, conform to society standards of what is masculine or what is a man and that kind of stuff. I would be saying some really nasty things about myself, and then my friends would go and say, no, wait, listen, what you're saying, you would not say this to another person, so don't say this about yourself. And it was really, like, freeing in a way, because I realized that I was trying to fit in with what conservative people usually would say. No, you cannot be this, you cannot be that. And then I was around my friends, and they were not the kind of people, and they were saying, why are you trying to conform? We are not the kind of people. You can be yourself around us. And that made me feel like more myself, you know. I was really struggling with trying to
It's
be
like a weight
really
off
as
your
as
chest.
possible. Yeah. And then they helped me, like, get my weight off my chest. But I have to say, sometimes I abused of, like, how much they would hear me. For example, my boyfriend, he keeps hearing about me, and I go like, oh my god, I'm not man enough. Oh my god. And then he says, well, you're going on this again. You know you shouldn't be saying that again. You need to work on this. And I'm like, yeah, I need to work on this. But if he was not saying that to me, I would be constantly thinking about it, you know. But at least when I talk to other people, I can get that out of my mind for a little bit, even though I need to get better on that. Right?
So, I've told this story a couple times. If you've been to some of, like, the trans-themed Moonlit Academy, Moonlit Memory type things, but my support system was incredibly important to my transition, because my support system is why I realized that I was trans. He's not able to be here tonight because he's working, but my best friend, my Moirail, he was the one who started transitioning out of the group of us in high school first. And so we were sort of learning about that from him and via associating with him. And I very vividly remember I was at his house, and it was just us two in the house, and I was sitting on the kitchen counter, and he was washing dishes. And I was sitting there, and I had a lot on my mind, and he could tell, so he was just letting me sit there so that I could speak when I wanted to. And I didn't look at him, and I said, "So, how did you know that you were trans?" And he did not look at me, and he continued washing his dishes, and he explained it to me, like what it felt like and all this sort of stuff. And a couple days later, I think at school, he brought me a box. And I still actually have the box. And inside the box was a binder, which, sidebar on this very delightful story, please, if you're going to wear a binder, research it, and the cheap ones are not a good idea. They're not a good idea. We didn't know. We know now. Don't use the cheap eyelet binders that don't have any stretch. Don't do it. It can damage your ribs.
So no, that's
However,
actually
we
really
didn't-
important. That's actually really important. I'm gonna stop this just to say, bind safely, bind safely, bind safely. Please bind safely.
Bind
please
safely. Do not use duct tape. Do not use ace bandage. Don't do it. Do not do it. You're gonna
That is
hurt
our-
yourself physically. It is like not a joke, not a bit. Do not do it.
Literally not a joke.
But we didn't know at the time, so we were being dumb because we didn't know. But he gave me one of the cheap binders that he had gotten. And he had also written my flesh name at the time in Elvish, and then had written out the definition for agender, trans, and asexual. And that was what sort of started me on my trans journey. And he's been there every step of the way. In fact, I've mentioned this in volunteer chat, but I was asking him for a while, because he's a trans man, and I was like, am I allowed to use the term transmasc if I'm not binary trans? And he was reassuring me, of course, but also he's my best friend, so I thought part of it was that he was just reassuring me. But then being here at the Academy, I went to a panel, specifically the Transmasc panel, like the last one. And I saw Crimson, who unfortunately could not be here tonight. I say unfortunately, Crimson is on vacation, having a wonderful time. Delighted for him. Miss you, buddy. But Crimson went on as he Transmasc. And that was a really big deal for me too, as I was like getting connected here to realize, oh wait, no one's upset about it. No one's saying that this is bad. I can be transmasc non-binary because I want to be more masculine in becoming what I want to be as non-binary. And so those were some pretty big deals for me.
No, yeah, community is really important. Like, you can actually see that you're not harming anyone by being yourself, right? When you're alone, you start thinking that you may be doing things wrong and that kind of stuff, that you will have someone that will come to you and say, you're invalid and that kind of stuff. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes
Like-
someone will come
Like
and say
the
that.
gender police. Like the
The
gender
gender
police.
police.
You are doing gender wrong. Do
You
not
are
ask
You
you
wrong.
are queer wrong. I mean, to be fair, we get stuff like that. We still have stuff like that in the queer community, like, oh, you're asexual. It's like, yeah, and I'm part of the A, buddy. Can you read? But yeah, like, here's the thing. And this is possibly a hot take. I don't think it is. I think it's a reasonable take. But labels only matter as much as they matter to you. Like, of course it matters, like, to have, like, a unified word. But if you're going to use a label for yourself, what matters is if it feels right for you. So there are some people who would not describe themselves as trans, but other people would describe as that. But it doesn't matter what those other people think. What matters is what that person thinks, because it's them that they are defining. And once you come to that realization, things get a lot easier. A lot.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot
But
easier.
this imposter syndrome is saying, am I really trans? Paul, if you think that and you're thinking that you probably are trans, I'm going to say that's a really big clue that you probably are trans, because cis people
Exactly.
usually they don't think about that. And
It's
if
like,
they
but
do, it's
am I
really hard.
trans enough? Well, do you think that you are? Do you want to be? Congratulations. Do you not want to
You
be?
are.
Also, congratulations. Like,
Yeah.
you get to define your own experience here. I mean, of course, you can't define how other people react to you, but you get to define your own experience of yourself.
Exactly that.
And if anyone tells you that you're using, like, well, blah, 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 it's like, are you defining me? Hello? Did you write me in the dictionary? Did I ask? If the answer to both of those questions is no, then it's irrelevant.
All right, so we are gonna go ahead. Oh, I really like this question. So what personal milestone are you proud of, like when it comes to like transitioning? So I would say for me, I was finally happy that I went from a goatee and now I am slowly but surely growing a beard after being on testosterone for a little bit. And that's been super exciting for me because when I first came out, I didn't think I was going to like myself with facial hair. I was so subconscious about it. But now that, my face is, now that I've seen my face with, the stubble and the facial hair, it's like, ooh, I really, really like this. And that's like brought me like even more euphoria as well. So what about you, Lucien?
For me, my milestone is a little more abstract than like physical changes or even transitioning. For me, it was actually accepting that I'm trans to the level that I could talk about it with other people. I was not very open about that. I was transitioning and I was thinking, no, I have to be this and I have to fake being a cis man and that kind of stuff. And I mean, I won't lie. Sometimes I'll still do that, but it's mostly for safety reasons. But when I could actually go to communities around like Trans Academy and say, "Yeah, I am trans. I'm not ashamed of it." For me, that was a milestone because for me, it was like I'm actually accepting who I am, and I'm at that stage of my transition. And for me, that's also a stage of transitioning, not just like the physical, legal, medical stuff, but also how mentally you're dealing with that. You're not just like dooming around it anymore. Like even going to Trans Academy, becoming a volunteer, helping with stuff, helping with classes. I even started my own resources blog for Brazil and that kind of stuff. And I joined my LGBT collective locally, and that gave me the sense that I was not ashamed of who I was anymore, which I literally would go around sidestepping it, and once I actually ran away from someone when they even thought to say, "Hey, but are you?" And then I just literally look at them and run away, like literally. That kind of comic stuff, and it was not healthy. But now I feel a lot better at least. What about you, Rory?
I'm trying to think. Cause for me, there's a lot of like little milestones, but then if I like think about them, they're not actually as little as I think they are. I think I'm gonna have to go with a specific one, which is a little bit smaller, quote unquote, but so I mentioned before, I'm a streamer online, and I used to play a popular first-person shooter video game, and I would go in voice chat when playing competitive. And to try to get myself to not care about people making comments about how I was a girl, I started this little quote-unquote bit where we would take note of how many times someone asked if I was a girl or a child. Because I apparently used to sound like I was 7, and now I sound like I'm 12. Unless I'm actually working on projecting my voice in a specific way. But if I'm just being casual on mic, I tend to sound really young. I also am seen as young in real life. It's a curse. But But I would try to do this whole thing about like, oh yeah, I'm gonna spin it, it's gonna be fun, it's silly, we're making a game out of it. And honestly, the point where I was like, you know what? This isn't funny. This isn't funny. I can't turn this into a joke. This sucks. This isn't fun. This is awful. And the point where I finally was like, I'm not gonna go in voice chat anymore in this game because it is not my job to be the trans person like standing up against that. I'm a person. I'm just myself, and and realizing that I didn't have to take on that quote unquote battle. Like, I didn't have to be the nice trans, because if I'm not the nice trans, then someone will see me and they'll be like, oh, well, this trans person was mean to me, so I don't like trans people. It was letting that go that was a really major milestone for me, in that I'm allowed to just be a person. I don't have to be like the pinnacle of the good blank. I hit the wall again.
Oh my god, that's so true.
I'm
The model
sorry,
minority.
but yeah.
The model minority is so true.
And letting myself have that break was a big thing, because it was draining me. Trying to like pretend, no, everything's fine, everything's chill. No, nothing is fine, everything is bad. So I'm gonna avoid this situation because I am not here to teach strangers. If people come with questions, I will answer them, but I'm not here to like be the teacher for every random person I encounter in the world. Like, that's not our job. Our job is to be alive, be ourselves, and be happy. And most people on the planet are working on the last two. So like, you don't need to expend extra energy when those are the three things that are important.
Oh my god, the mono minority thing is so true. I'm just thinking still about that, because people will come to us and will say, no, you have to be the model transmasc. You have to be this way, and this way. And if you act any kind of way aggressively, then you're not model and you're being one of those men. I'm just thinking about that. Oh my god, and now so many questions that we have to answer. So icky. Oh my god.
I think we've got enough time for the last question.
Yes. The last one was, what advice would you give other people considering to transition or to start to transition? Essick?
Essick, are you muted?
I think he's muted.
Oh yes, I'm here. Oh,
Okay,
man,
you
I
were
was on a-
gesturing,
I was-
you were like moving your
I
head
was
like
on
you
a
were talking. and
I was on a roll too, but yes, I'm gonna
I'm
say
so
this.
sorry, we heard none of it. We were just like,
It's okay.
No,
It's okay. Oops.
Start again.
I'm
Do your
gonna say,
roll.
you need to do what you need to do. If you want to physically transition, then physically transition. If you just want to socially transition, then socially transition. At the end of the day, you have to live your life the way that you want to. You can't like have these outer voices like convincing you and saying like, oh, what if, we touched up about this earlier in the panel, like, oh, what if you mess up your body, or what if you're just a confused girl or whatever. And it's like, no, like, people have an innate sense of self, and keep yourself safe, do what you need to do to transition, and like live your life the way that you want to without hurting anyone else, obviously.
For me, I think I would say that, at least because that's what I usually see people struggling with, is if you're trans, there is no way you will stop being trans or force yourself to stop being trans. So trying to transition could be better than you just trying to stop it, right? One day, if you are really trans, you will transition, because to be happy, there's an extremely few trans people that actually can feel happy without transitioning at some point of their lives, like, because it's really difficult to every single day you just keep thinking that you're talking to people that don't know you, and it's, if you're eventually gonna do it, why not start now? And you might think, oh, what if I'm not trans? Well, then don't do the permanent stuff. Why don't you try it out in your own pace, not the pace that other people are trying to say that you need to take. Like, I keep
Exactly.
thinking about my family saying, oh no, if you think that you need to at least 5 years have been thinking that, and blah, 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 blah. That's all a bunch of
No
crazy
good.
talk, from people that actually don't know how you feel, and only you know how you feel. So just go by that. Do whatever you feel like it.
And the 5
Rory?
years metric, the several years metric actually comes from the medical system into getting a diagnosis to then be able to get specific paperwork so that you can work on transitioning in specific ways. It is not saying you have to transition this way to be trans. It is saying to get the paperwork that you need because the system is broken and this is how the system works. You have to follow these rules. It's not saying the rules are correct. It's saying here's how you follow the rules to get what you need. But my main advice is however you feel, that's what matters. If you feel happy in a specific, like using specific pronouns, that's fine. If you do want to go full physical transition, that's fine. If you don't want to, or if you only want to get like a couple things, like I'd love to get top surgery. I would not love to take testosterone, like stuff like that. Or there's some people who like want to take different medicine. There's some people who just want to be social. There's some people who feel okay with their body. They just want to like be who they are publicly. And so the main thing is just be yourself and care about who that person is, because it is way more difficult to accept yourself if you start off hating yourself. It's doable, but it is a lot of work. And the other thing I say every time is be safe. Look things up. Bind safely. I will say it again. I will say it again louder for the people in the back. If you are going to bind safely. Like, my friend messed up his ribs permanently because of using those old binders. Like, you have to be safe. I understand. Trust me. I get it. I get how awful it can feel, like, to wear the sports bra or not be binding at all. But you have to think about the future, because the future will come and you will be there. So make sure you're there in as best health as you can be.
No, that's. Oh, I love that you did this binding rant, because people keep saying, "Well, what about now? What about now?" And yeah, we get it. But like, if you keep doing that and you mess the ribs like the friend that Rory had, then you can bind less, or might not even be able to bind because of the pain later. So if you get it now, this legal pain now, then you may be able to like save up from a lot of pain that you'll have later. So please bind safely, bind safely, bind safely.
Absolutely.
And thank you for having us. We appreciate being given this opportunity to talk about being who we are and being able to share with you guys a little bit of our experiences.
No, absolutely. And we really do appreciate VRelium and Trans Academy for us being able to talk about being transmasc and what it's like. Do y'all have any like final thoughts or?
No, that's mostly it, but I would.
I kind of solidified
Okay,
my final thoughts with like, be safe, because you're going to be here later. Because you will be.
Exactly.
You will be here later. It might not feel like it,
Absolutely.
but eventually you're going to get to here. Eventually you're going to get from that point to here. So you got to take care of yourself because it's going to be harder when you get here.
And that way you could live and be your authentic self, you know, happy and, you know, fully great that way as well, like in one piece.
I guess
Thank
that's it
you
for
all
the
so
spin on this
much.
time, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone. Oh. Thank you.